Hi, everyone. Angela Sayre with Crustacean Plantation. In the Florida Keys, little hermit crabs teach us big lessons about life. With wise words and tiny claws, they show us how to be patient, brave, and kind. This rhyming tale of resilience and growth is perfect for little adventurers who are learning how to navigate them around the world. Hermit Crab Wisdom: Little Lessons for Big Hearts. To the wonderful followers of Crustacean Plantation and hermit crab lovers near and far, your passion for these tiny creatures inspires us every day to protect their world and share their quiet wisdom. And to the little ones reading this book, may these small lessons for big hearts remind you to be patient, kind, and brave as you grow. Like the hermit crab, you are on an amazing journey, one step or shell at a time. Acknowledgements. To the wild hermit crabs of the Florida Keys, thank you for being my quiet, tiny teachers. Your resilience, adaptability, and charm have taught me lessons I didn't know I needed. Without you, this book and the life lessons within would never have been possible. To my husband Brian and mini schnauzers Martha and George, thank you for your unwavering patience and support as I embark on my own hermit crab journey. You have been my safe harbor, even when tide seems high. And to my mom, who always told me to write my own book, hey mom, look, I finally did it. Thank you for believing in me, even when I wasn't so sure of my own shell. Let's go on with the book. At the edge of the shore, where the waves meet the sand, lives a little hermit crab, small but so grand. With claws that are tiny and a shell on his back, he's full of wise lessons. Let's follow his track. If you don't see the right shell, don't you despair. Be patient, my friend. It'll show up out there. The best things in life take a little more time. The perfect fit's coming. It'll feel just sublime. Whether you're lost or unsure which way you should go, try changing your view. Take it nice and slow. Look high, look low, look left, look right. A new perspective might show you the light. Sometimes it's fun to just hide in your shell, where it's quiet and cozy, and all feels swell. But the best times of all, they're with friends you see. So come out and play. Hang with your Hermes. It's okay to take breaks and rest for a while. Self-care is important. It'll bring back your smile. Just like when I molt and my old shell feels tight, I grow stronger and braver after each quiet night. When the waves get too high and the winds start to blow, stay calm, little one. Don't fear the unknown. Life's full of surprises. Just go with the flow. Be like me and adapt as you grow. Don't cling to the past when it's time to move on. A bigger, better shell means I'm growing strong. Change can be scary, but it's worth it, you'll see. New adventures are waiting for you and for me. So when life gets tricky, remember this rhyme. Be patient, be kind, and take your sweet time. Stay curious, adapt, and let your heart sing. You're a lot like a hermit crab, ready for anything. Crustacean Plantation, Tavernier, Florida. Always remember, leave the shell, take the memory. And that concludes our book aspect of our presentation for Crustacean Plantation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll back through the book again and share with you how I use this book as my lesson plan for whenever I do presentations and workshops with children and with like homeschooling and things of that nature. So now I'm going to flip back through the book and I'm going to kind of walk you through, because at this point, kids have all sorts of questions, and of course, so do the adults. But as I go through, you'll see how first I read the book, and then I flip back through it again, and then I talk through the book, and the lessons that these hermit crabs have been teaching me and that I can also help teach you, and you can help teach others. All right, let's go on. So at the edge of the shore, where the waves meet the sand, lives a little hermit crab, small but so grand. So here, I'm focusing on the picture of the book. One of the biggest myths I always see with people is that they think hermit crabs live along the shoreline. That's somewhat true. But did you also know that hermit crabs live in the woods? Now, you may find a hermit crab along the shoreline, but they're only there for just a few different reasons. First, they actually lay their eggs in the ocean. Did you know that? Male and female hermit crabs come together. The female actually lays her eggs inside her shell, and when it's that time of year, she makes her way to the ocean, lays her eggs in the ocean, and then that's where all of the little magic happens. Little teeny tiny hermit crabs are born. And from there, they come back to shore once they go through their cycle, kind of similar to a frog, the tadpole aspect. When it's time for them to take their own shell, because they are not born with shells, they will come back to shore, find a little teeny tiny shell, and then start their new life as a hermit crab on land. So again, that's one reason. Another reason is they actually do drink salt water, but they also drink fresh water. So that's another reason why, even though you may find them there, they're actually driven more inland to try to find that freshwater source. A third reason why you may find them along the shore is obviously for shells. Hermit crabs are not born with shells, and that's where the majority of shells wash up. So that's another reason why you might find them. But again, that's not where they live. They actually live out in the woods. Well, let's continue this journey. If you don't see the right shell, don't you despair. Be patient, my friend. It'll show up out there. Now, this line actually was inspired by a hermit crab. I was walking out my front door and I just saw him sitting there. And there's all sorts of shells in front of him, but he was just sitting there. And I looked at him and I looked at the shells, and those shells were way too big. He could try to fit into them, but they weren't going to be right for them. So I was just like, oh, that's a fantastic lesson. Sometimes you may not see something that looks right for you, but that doesn't mean you need to jump in it right away. Be patient. It'll show up out there, just like the right shell for a hermit crab, because hermit crabs grow. And as they grow, they need to move into the next shell for them. Just like you see this little hermit crab here waiting. Moving on to the next page. When you're lost or unsure which way you should go, try changing your view. Take it nice and slow. And as I go on, look high, look low, look left or look right. A new perspective might show you the light. Now let's take a look at this picture. What do you see? Well, you see a hermit crab and you see a house. But what's in the hermit crab? Where is the hermit crab? And of course, everybody goes, it's in a tree. So I just told you a little bit ago, a couple pages back, that you may find hermit crabs along the shore, but you're also going to find them out in the woods. Did you know hermit crabs can climb trees? And of course, everyone's like, what? Yes, hermit crabs can climb trees. And this is a perspective. The first time I ever noticed this, I was walking out my front door, and here in the Keys, we actually live kind of like up on stilts because, hurricanes and flooding. And the first time I walked out my front door, which is like on the second story, I looked out in the mahogany, and gosh darn it, there was a hermit crab sitting right there in the mahogany tree, just like what you see in this picture here. And that's one of the reasons where you sit here and you go through and you talk about how when you see hermit crabs kept in captivity in tanks, you only think of them in a flat area. Gosh, no, these guys love to climb. So one lesson you can learn from a hermit crab, don't just look on the ground. Also look up. Same life lessons for you. Sometimes what you're looking for may not be right in front of you. You may actually need to change your point of view and look different places, even if it means looking up. All right, moving on to the next page. Sometimes it's fun to just hide in your shell where it's quiet and cozy and all feels well. So here, people often think hermit crabs. Okay, Well, what about hermit crabs? So what about hermit crabs? What does that name actually mean? And people start saying, oh, well, hermit means something that's solitary, that just kind of hangs out by themselves. Well, what if I were to tell you that they're actually really social creatures, just like you see here in this picture? Hermit crabs do like to hang out with their Hermes. There are many times whenever I see a hermit crab walking around out on its own, you will see just one. But sometimes, if you pay attention and you look behind him, you'll see another one following, and another one following, and another one following. So what they're doing is they're following each other to kind of hang out together in a group because one, why? There's always safety in numbers. So where you see one, you're going to see another hermit crab. Two, opportunists. Just like when I told you they have to keep finding that next shell, they are going to rely on working with each other. So as one grows and moves into one shell, another one can switch and move into that one. So that's the same thing. They're going to keep moving forward and moving into different shells. Also, what do you see in this picture? And of course, I go, oh, is that a mango? Of course, that's a mango. Did you know hermit crabs actually love to eat mangoes? And that brings us into a discussion on what all the hermit crabs like to eat. What do hermit crabs eat in the wild? In the wild, obviously down here in the Keys, we do have mangoes, we have bananas, we've got coconuts, which hermit crabs love coconuts. And they do love mangoes too. But they also are nature's janitors. So they will crawl through the woods. They will eat all of the leaf and the debris that falls down from the trees. And when they do that, they're actually aerating the soil. Um, on top of when they go through and eat that leaf and debris, they will also eat decaying animals. So any type of deceased animal that's out there, that's actually one of the hermit crab's job, is to go through and clean that right down. Because as a deceased animal will lay there, it starts to create flies, which will create disease. So the sooner those hermit crabs find that nice little meal, they'll go through, clean it up, and make the whole woods healthy for them again. All right, moving on to the next page. This is a fun one. It's okay to take breaks and rest for a while. Self-care is important. It'll bring back your smile. Just like when I molt and my new shell feels tight. Molt? What does that mean? Molting? So kind of similar to what you think about uh, snakes, horseshoe crabs. Hermit crabs actually will shed their exoskeleton. So when a hermit crab is growing, kind of similar like to you and me, and especially when you're talking to kids, you know when your shoes are just too small and you need new ones? Hermit crabs do the same thing. So hermit crabs, whenever their shell starts to feel too tight and their skin starts to feel too tight, then it's time for them to molt. And what they do, if you have hermit crabs in captivity, you can say they dig down into that 6-inch substrate, and that's where they actually will hibernate, is what I tell people. Because it kind of, you have to find other animals that they can relate to, because not always are people thinking about hermit crabs. Oh, they molt, they shed their skin. Well, snakes shed their skin. People are familiar with snakes. They're also familiar with horseshoe crabs. Horseshoe crabs shed their skin. But when you talk about molting, um, they're like, okay, well, I'm really not sure what that means. And why would they dig down? That's similar to bears and how bears actually kind of go into a hibernation. Hermit crabs also go into a hibernation. So this is where you talk about how the hermit crab will molt. In the wild, they will find an area as they're walking through the woods to kind of dig down into that leaf litter, and that's where they'll go through and they'll molt, and they'll shed their skin. Now, on a personal level, sometimes you just need that quiet time. You need that quiet time to sit there and reflect and think about how you're going to grow from an experience. Sometimes you just need to have that meditation, and that's also a nice little life lesson that hermit crabs will teach you. All right, moving on. When waves get too high and the winds start to blow, stay calm, little one. Don't fear the unknown. Life's full of surprises. Just go with the flow. Be like me and adapt as you grow. Now here, I couldn't quite get my images to work out right. because hermit crabs are really good at adapting, sometimes good and sometimes to their detriment. So what happens when a hermit crab can't find a shell? Now, this is where I normally have a tulip shell, so I can actually show them the modification for the tulip shells. Um, if a hermit crab needs to grow and they're trying to find that next shell, one thing that hermit crabs will do is they will actually eat their shell. That's called when they modify it. So they adapt. Now, obviously, one of the lessons that we're trying to share with crustacean plantation is leave the shell, take the memory. But why is leaving the shell important? Because if a hermit crab can't find that shell in the wild and they can't find a shell at all, what will they move into? Sometimes it's trash. So even if it's a piece of trash, a bottle cap, a broken piece of glass, a PVC pipe, hermit crabs will move into that. Now that's good and bad, but it also shows their adaptability and also shows that they're able to creatively think about, if I can't find the natural source to be able to protect my body, what can I do to be able to protect myself that will allow me to adapt and grow? And sometimes if it's trash, then sometimes it's trash, because you know what? That ability to adapt will let them persevere just a little bit longer until hopefully they can find their next shell. They'll allow them to continue growing. All right, moving on. Don't cling to the past. When it's time to move on, a bigger and better shell means I'm growing on. Change can be scary, but it's worth it, you'll see. New adventures are waiting for you and for me. These guys are always on the move. I know because when we put out shells, we also mark and adapt right on the shells. And that's how I'm able to tell how far they travel. They are not sedentary creatures. They will not, I mean, they will sit and hang out in one area for a while, but they will also travel and they will explore and they will get out and see new adventures. There's times when I've been able to track a hermit crab come to crustacean plantation. They'll pick up a shell, but then a couple weeks later, a couple months later, I'll actually get a notification from a neighbor of mine that this same hermit crab is blocks away. So that's a great way of knowing that new adventures are waiting. Hermit crabs aren't just going to kind of sit and hang out in one area. They will for a little bit, but they will also travel. They will adapt. If they need to travel far and wide to find a new shell, they will. If they need to travel far and wide to find their fresh water source, they will. And they're very creative like that. So even though change can be scary and they're called a hermit crab, they're really a lot more brave than you can think. So let that be a lesson for you. All right. So when life gets tricky, remember this rhyme. Be patient, be kind, and take your sweet time. Stay curious, adapt, and let your heart sing. You are a lot like a hermit crab, ready for anything. So with that, I actually go through and I tell them, you know what, hey, you're learning. Just like you learned about hermit crabs, you also learned a little bit about yourself. Don't just stay in one put. You can adapt. You can grow. You can look left. You can look right. You can look high and you can look low. Be like a hermit crab and adapt as you grow. All right, that concludes my presentation. I do have an adult book. You can actually purchase this book. It's available on Amazon. Please, if you do and you are able to use it and share it as a lesson plan, please let me know. I'll be more than glad to hear your feedback. But thank you all so very much. All right, Angela Sayre, Crustacean Plantation. Have a good day.